camera switches to me and everything's sounding good. So you can cut me down. Hey everybody, welcome to Wingtalk. It's a special episode today. We have in the studio our special friend Pawel, all the way from Germany. I don't think you can see you quite yet. So, but
From
when
Poland, mate. From Poland.
but no, you're in Germany. You have the thickest
No,
German
I'm
accent.
Poland. I'm in Poland. I'm in Poland.
I know a German accent when I hear one.
No, that's the Russian one.
Awesome. So we can get back to you in 1 second, Paul. We can introduce some other people. Everyone wants to know what the lockdown's like in the UK. So the guy who is telling us all about it is keeping abreast of it, letting you know if it's safe to go outside, is Luke. Luke, how you doing today?
Good. Yeah, it's really, really, really hot here at the moment, so I don't think anyone's wanting to go out anyway. Well, when I say really hot, I mean, hot for an English person, so.
Luke, I would say, I've been admiring your hairstyle now. This one is full rock and roll.
This is just too much. Tomorrow, England opens up and the hair's going, so.
I've been hearing that for months, though,
Well, yeah, I could have had it cut for months, but now the bet with my friends is finished. Or tomorrow it will have. So, yeah.
I say you should stay with this. This is kind of, I like this look. It's 70s rocker kind of look.
I don't know. It's just too much. It's unmanageable. It's always getting in the way. And
yeah, okay. I'm looking forward to seeing what you look like in the next Wingtalk.
Yeah,
all right. So somebody who's been rocking the long hairdo and the rocker hairstyle for a very long time is our friend Darren Lines. Darren, what's going on?
Yeah, quite a few years I've had this haircut. But yeah, no, it'd be interesting seeing Luke basically looking like an egg.
Yeah,
just bald.
Exactly how I look.
See, that's just we've got the guys from the UK who have the long hair, and then we got the guys in Germany who sport my hairstyle, which is no. Well, I think you. Listen, Paul, are you in Germany or not?
No.
You're in Poland right now?
Yes.
This is his house where he does all his videos,
yes,
so it's in Poland.
Okay.
I'm sometimes in Germany since the COVID. Not very often, though.
Not very often. Okay. Well, all right. From Poland, which part of Poland are you in?
Close to the German border.
Okay, that's where I'm confused. Now, speaking of someone who's from Germany, is our very own INAV expert in the group, Mr. Mark Hoffman, all the way from Halle, Germany. Mark, what's going on?
Yeah, hi. What's going on? I was a little bit too lazy, so no haircut for me during the last 2 weeks. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's also very hot here. We have still 28 degrees, and the shower from 30 minutes ago is already obsolete. So today was no flying for me. It was just too warm. So I've done that yesterday.
Oh, well, that's too bad. And I figure you had a nice flight yesterday. You were posting all over the place in the group.
Yeah, I was on a trip with a friend together. He has taken his Mavic Mini to take some aerial shots, and we were driving around looking for possible new spots. And yeah, I found a few, and I think I will visit them more often now.
Now you have your new car. Car's working out okay?
Yep, everything is working fine. It's old, it's rusty, but it works.
Gotta love that. Okay, so our special guest today is pretty much the face of INAV, and it was one thing. The one question I have for you out of the gate, which is, you're the face of INAV, but there's actually Mr. INAV, is the guy who's kind of a recluse. Somebody. I did happen to catch you guys talking together at a stream at the end of last year. Constantine?
Yes, Constantine, correctly.
Yeah. So why is he not more visible? I mean,
That's his choice, mate. I don't know why he decided not to be visible.
Oh, okay.
We are living in the huge world of freedom.
Well, it's great having the two of you on together and just chatting it up. I was hoping you guys could do more of those kind of shows.
I'm, let's say, don't see any topics. No, it's really like that. Konstantin is extremely busy person. He really has a lot of work to do, and getting for him, let's say, few hours, because with the preparation it takes usually a few hours. It's a challenge, and his option is to be, let's say, the technical guy and the official maintainer of the repository, and I'm acting like a frontman, superstar.
You're the David Lee Roth, and he's the Eddie Van Halen, right?
Something like that.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So before we get into anything, I also wanted to ask you, I saw you were on vacation. It was a pretty long vacation. You just got back from vacation, I would say.
Who, me?
Yeah.
No, I had a 1 week vacation at the last week of June, and since that I'm all working again, unfortunately. I like to take a long vacation, but this is not always possible, unfortunately.
Okay, well, it's interesting. I guess you're in Poland, and different parts of the world are opening up, and some places are opening up and some are not. And it's nice you're able to get out and get to see the world. Then it looks like you brought along like something like a Mavic Mini or something like that to get all these shots.
Yeah, I got me a Mavic last few months ago. That's definitely a useful device. But traveling with kids, it's kind of always problematic. So it's not that you can just go somewhere and just go somewhere. It always takes a little bit of planning.
Oh yeah, I could imagine. So that's okay. Cool. All right. So we have. Everybody, please know that we have questions that are available. We're having the guys monitor your questions in the chat. So if you'd like to ask anything of Pawel, please feel free to speak up. So we should probably start off with INAV 3.0. So what are actually, so much I have to ask you about. I want to ask you about INAV 3.0. I also want to ask you about, you had a video last week that came out that said that the RC hobby is kind of dead as far as the number of views. I'm certain you went down the list of all these different people's.
The market is dead. No, the market is dead. It all depends how you're gonna understand the hobby, because think of it like that. The fact that we over here are having fun with our models and are flying is great, fantastic. However, our hobby cannot really exist without, let's say, the market support. There have to be someone who will provide us toys, and we have to be willing to buy toys. And from that perspective, the market actually is dead, and I really do stand behind my word. And there are really several reasons for the fact that the market is dead, and companies are rather going out, and worst of which, new people are not really joining the hobby as often as people are leaving a hobby. Because let's be honest, we joined the hobby, different hobbies, and after a few years, quite a lot of the people doing something will actually leave if no new persons will join. I know that from the perspective of the people that continue the adventure, it's kind of hard to. It's not that obvious that the hobby is in the decline. But if you try to find actual numbers that, for example, say what's the situation of the market, and let's say that the number of views on the channels is one of the numbers that say something, the numbers are not really looking that good. And the examples I showed last week or 2 weeks ago, I completely forgot that the number of views is going down. It's only one of the problems. And take a look at who runs affiliate program on Chinese platforms. Hands up.
What was the question again?
Yes, Mark is running affiliate program. Darren?
Yeah.
Yeah, so how your numbers are looking?
Yeah, it seems, for me, it sort of seems like I'm getting more clicks than I'm actually getting recognized for on certain platforms.
No, but I, for example, from my perspective, know that in the last 1.5 years, The number of clicks is more or less the same as before. However, the number of purchases and amount of money spent on the hobby stuff went down. I checked 4 times, 4 times less than the last year. So that does not look like a hobby going, like the people getting a lot of stuff. And there are, let's say, unofficial also data to from time to time is signalized to me. And a lot of companies are not also going that well in terms of sales and incomes and what's really happening on the market. So yeah, I really do have to say that the hobby is in the zombie state. It's not dead because people are still flying, but it's also not growing, and it's not conquering the world. Go back a few years ago when, for example, this whole Dubai FPV race was happening. Whoa, this moment was a peak of a hobby. Back then, the RC FPV hobby has the biggest media coverage. And I'm not saying about blogs running YouTube channels. I'm just saying about people talking about the FPV. Since that moment, it's slowly going down.
So yeah, let's just add a few cents from my side. I mean, your video title or your wording that the hobby is dead, I would not agree on that. But as you say, it's stagnating. It's on a constant level. And speaking of the clicks and also the affiliate stuff, I mean, we are running currently basically 2 affiliate profiles. One for the fixed wing group, where we collect money that will also spend soon. Also in favor of the INAV developers, at least there are some plans. And then I have my own affiliate program that's only related to my channel. And I agree, I had some good level from the beginning, but it's basically on the same level, even that my subscriber count and view count basically doubled during the last year. But the affiliate income is on the same level, and right now it's like I can, if I would spend it once a year, I could buy a very cheap small FPV plane from it. So it's not really much I get from it. On the other hand, I think what also happens if, because of the user count, the FPV pilot count is staying basically the same, the people that are already in the hobby and have some experience level, they don't watch tutorial YouTube videos anymore. They know what they're doing. They tune their quads. They build their quads always the same way. They don't click on the stuff on the YouTube videos, and only a few newcomers are mainly watching new videos and tutorial stuff. But this number, as you say, is going down. I think that's what we then see in the clicks.
From my perspective, it doesn't really matter why things are happening. The matter is that things are really happening. I know that many people say, oh, but lockdown is over and people finally can go out. And I say, does it really matter if the lockdown is over or not over? It doesn't. So maybe the thumbnail of the video was a teeny tiny clickbait. I'm learning to make clickbait thumbnails because this is good for the business. Trust me, it's good for the business. However, the title of my video clears that it's a zombie state. Probably what we are missing is media finally one more time getting the positive view of the hobby, and I doubt this will happen. Or some kind of the new groundbreaking technology that will bring in the hype again. And I'm not talking about the new radio link, new series of flight controllers, or new drone released by the DJI, because with all due respect to the DJI, I doubt that the FPV DJI thingy really brings a lot of new users to the hobby. We are really missing something big, something huge that would bring our hobby back to the mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think that it probably has got a little bit to do with COVID, just because people have been put on off of work. Maybe they've been furloughed. Maybe they've been just laid off. So people don't have so much money to spend. If you can't go out and fly, you're not going to buy new stuff. So I think it does have a bit of a knock-on effect. But
Yes, but what's the difference? Why things happening? It's just happening.
yeah, but I also did a check. I used that website that you posted. I can't remember what it's called, social something.
Yeah.
And I checked another sort of sport, if you like, but sort of low level. So I checked table tennis, and a similar channel with sort of 30,000 views had exactly the same sort of downward trend. So maybe it's not necessarily just our hobby; it's just something that's affecting the world at the moment. And potentially,
I would not really be looking that far. If you take a look one more time at the social blade, on top there is actually, yes, the list of views in the last 1 year. But if you go below, you will get the number of views like 2 or even 3 years ago. And then if you take a look, there's a lot of cases when channels peaked like in 2018, 2019. And then since that moment, it's all going down. It's really hard to find a find a big channel that is able to grow. And by grow, I really do mean like a grow, like get 50% more views during the last year. If you go to the biggest players, it's all 2-3 years time period. Almost all of them are losing views.
The one thing I'll say is that here in the United States, I don't know if you have this where you're at, but whenever you pull up YouTube now, you get a commercial, and sometimes they're 10 seconds. You can opt out of it in 10 seconds, and sometimes you have to sit down for 30 seconds. And it's kind of like, do I really want to sit here and watch a guy fly his quad? What?
We should compare that with the total number of views on the YouTube. I have not checked what are the official numbers for the YouTube, what are the total numbers for the full platform. But if I would have to guesstimate, I would say that the total number is going up, not down.
Up, but what about the daily viewership? I'd say the daily viewership and the number of hours people spend on YouTube per day in total is probably going down because people just don't want to sit through this. I mean, it's really become overbearing. And now if you have a 10-minute video, you get 3 commercial interruptions in a 10-minute video. So your live streams don't get interrupted, but everything else does. The other thing I will say is that I really started the hobby around end of 2016. And I remember 2017 all the way through 2018. At the end of the year, Hobby King it was the same thing around Christmas time. It was Hobby King and Banggood. All the stuff, they just put it on sale. And Banggood had this special code, AP20, where everything that was on sale, there were about 30 or 40 planes that had another 20% discount on top of them. So, I mean, you're getting the mini Talon for about $40 shipped. And, the prices were insane. Everything was in stock. I mean, you go into Hobby King's website, everything was in stock. And I'd say since 2019, we really don't have a lot of inventory. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to source this stuff. It's getting back to the point where if you wanted to buy servos, you either pay exorbitant prices from Amazon or you have to wait, 2 or 3 weeks to get it from AliExpress or Banggood. So I think that has something to do with it as well. It's just harder and harder to get parts sourced. And I do notice also that Sonic models, for example, some of the planes are just out of stock. Like you can't find them anymore. The F1 goes in stock.
Yes, but the question is, are they out of stock because they are out of stock and this is why people are not buying stuff, or they are out of stock because it's not economically viable to produce them with such a low income margin? We don't know. This is the problem. I allowed myself to quickly go through some of the data I was able to find on the YouTube numbers. I do not see any numbers for the 2021, but number of users growing, numbers of views up to Q1 2021, and it's growing like 20% yearly. And our hobby still, in total numbers, is losing.
Do we have any data on INAV downloads or anything like that?
I have data about downloads. That is tricky. I can get the data, but it will take me like an hour to compile this from the official GitHub repository. However, I do have data about the configurator usage. Because it's just using Google Analytics, and if I really want to, I'm just doing this right now in the moment. In the last year, let me quickly go through the data. Is there data sharing in this thing called the Skype?
You guys do a screen share.
One
of those buttons on the side. Which one is it, Mark? Darren, you know which button it is on the side? Screen share.
Okay, screen share. So I'm just sharing my screen. Sorry for the. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry for the Polish, but like I said, I'm in Poland, so I'm using Polish. Okay, so users, and let's try to get for the last, I don't know,
3 years maybe.
From 2019 to the 2021, so we're gonna have how many? Oh, even 2018. We can go like that. It will take, of course, a while to compile, and let's see it month by month and try to see sessions, not the users. So sessions. This is how it looks like. 3 years ago, we had less active users of INAV than we are having right now. Is it a huge growth? No, it's not. However, it's also not a decline, so I would say that it's not that bad. Unfortunately, I cannot show you the same comparing to the competition because I do not have access to that data of the competition. Read Erdu Pilot and the Betaflight. However, if somebody really would like to take a look at the data, the number of downloads of the binaries used to flash flight controllers for INAV Betaflight and for the EMU flight, it's a public data. You can get this kind of the information from the GitHub itself. You can write a parser that will just parse the JSONs and give you this information. So that's the reality. The more you look, it's harder to find and positive, optimistic aspects of the market. It might be only me, but on the other hand,
as Henrik also said about in the last year, a lot more drone YouTube channels have popped up. FPV related stuff. So everyone's taking a smaller share of the pie, kind of thing. May have something to do with it. Don't know.
With all due respect, I don't think this is really a problem. How YouTube works. Problem, not problem for me. Let's call it that for Mark and for Darren opportunity. The thing with the YouTube is that YouTube is promoting only popular content. If you do not have views, you will not get views. So small channel is absolutely not a competition for the big channel. Big channel is a competition for the big channel. On the longer run, the smaller channel can have a nicer dynamics, and on the longer run can reach or overtake the bigger channel. But taking even a look from my perspective, I'm getting so much less views than the Bardwell that I'm not really competition for Bardwell. On the other hand, my channel probably gets so much more views than Mark's and Darren's channel that they are not really, I don't really look at those channels as the competition for me. Because not only the number of views and number of subscribers, not the dynamic, because in terms of dynamics, their channels are growing in a much nicer way. And really the growth dynamic is super nice, but in the absolute numbers, no. On top of that, hobby as itself is very wide topic, and everybody can have a niche. My niche is really hard to define, and your niche, it's really like up to you. Small channel is not really a competition for the big channel on this context.
Yeah, I have to agree here. I mean, if you are a small channel, as Pawel already said, you won't get promoted as much on YouTube, especially if people just enter the site, go to the start page where they get promoted videos from their subscribed channels, and also from unknown channels, just to see them the first time, for example. But overall, if people go into their subscription list, they look the videos from the people they want to see, and they have already subscribed.
YouTube is making that harder and harder every year. Not only by default right now, YouTube only shows, like, by default only, I don't know, 6, maybe 7 channels you watch the most. And trust me, on my list, none of the channel is really FPV related, but that's a different stuff. YouTube stopped sending notifications. YouTube stopped sending emails when a channel uploads the video. The list is really made dynamic, and very, very often, although I'm kind of interested in something of the channel posted, I don't get this information. I get the notification of the video that already has 100,000 views, something that's really like super, that people are watching, because this is exactly how the YouTube algorithm is working. YouTube algorithm knows that people will be watching that other people liked, so it's only promoting videos that are popular. But in this discussion, I think this is my fault in that video, we have not answered a question: is it a bad thing that the hobby is in this zombie state? Is it a bad thing for us, for pilots? So that's the completely different story. I don't think that we really should be worrying. Market to some extent will regulate itself. If right now the situation is that the price margin on the manufacturer is so low that it's really hard for them to survive, some of them will leave the market. Only the biggest, the strongest, and the ones that are delivering the best stuff will survive for how long as people will want to replace motor or, I don't know, flight controller from time to time. And we will be able to get our stuff to fly even more. Will it be cheaper or more expensive than right now? Hard to tell. Will we get media coverage? And I'm not talking about the negative media coverage because, oh, this drone was caught flying on the airfield. That's a completely different story. So, okay. Market is in the zombie mode. People are still flying.
One thing I'll say is that the other day, I know somebody who was a pretty popular vlogger from about 4 or 5 years ago in the hobby, and I looked on his list. He has 10,000 subscribers, but over the last 6 months, his average video watch rate is about 300 videos, 300 viewers per video, which, and pretty much the content, his whole show is, I went to the hobby store, I bought this plane, let me tell you about it, which, I think speaks volumes about what's really going on. And this is more about what's going on, I think, with the state of the hobby. And that is, it's the same thing we saw with one of the members in the group. He asked, hey, what can I do to get 1,000 subscribers? I mean, he outright asked in the group, I need like 1,000 subscribers. And the truth is that I think people are really overwatching FPV videos. People just don't really care to see. I mean, you might fly in really cool places and have a very beautiful video, but the things that seem to get downloaded the most are the things that are helpful. So, I mean, if Darren puts out a video, sometimes I'll look and like, oh my God, 2,000 people have watched this already, and this went out yesterday. So that's where I see things going, whereas if you have something that, as far as the title is concerned, it's going to a certain topic, something that people can look up and get into. They're not really so much interested in drone videos, they're interested in flight videos, but if you're going to talk about how to hook up a Maytech F405 with Crossfire, you'll get a lot of views.
No. You will not get a lot of views of how to hook up a Maytech F405. You will also not get a lot of views how to your flight videos, unless unless you are already super popular, like for example, Mr. Steel, which almost only publish some flight videos and some narration about stuff he did, but he's popular. What you said about the guy has 10,000 subscribers and is getting only 300 views. YouTube made the subscriber count absolutely irrelevant.
Oh, interesting.
Subscriber count for the creator on the YouTube is only the fame metrics, but it does not translate to anything else. Since YouTube stopped informing people that the people who you subscribe uploaded video, this is only like, okay, I have 36,000 of subscribers and I have 2. That means I am 18 times bigger than you. No, the only thing that counts is the number of views. Subscriber count, come on, absolutely irrelevant. This is the no, I roll back, not the number of views, watch hours. This is the only metric that actually matters, because you are, as a creator on YouTube, you are basically paid for the combination of views and the watch hours. And this is the only metric that really matters.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I mean, just compare that. Steve, you said there's a guy with 10,000 subscribers and around 300 views per video. I mean, my average view count per video is between 300 and 400 in the first month. And some videos get 1,000 or 1,500 views if they are really interesting, or tutorial videos that no one else has covered before. That's also the important stuff, to get something done that no one else has done before. And that's just in the first month. And look at Darren's channel. I'm at 1,600 subs right now. Darren is at 2,100, 2,200. So he has around 20% more subscribers, but has double the view count than I have, because his content is completely in English. That's also a big factor. What language do you in?
Extremely important factor, yes.
And I just saw it on my latest video where I explained how I tune a plane for myself, and I did this in German and in English, and my English version has 3 times the view count than the German version.
Yes, of course. Limiting yourself to the number of people that are like 80 millions of German-speaking people in the world. Let's say maybe 80 something. If you really add some like Dutch, maybe they will understand each other or not. Is extremely limiting. The English language is the only language that actually makes sense to make content on the internet. By the way, I'm not really the only one that sees the problem. A few days ago, I spoke with the fellow YouTube creator. I will not disclose his name because that's not really relevant there.
Painless 360.
Painless? No, that was not Lee. Definitely not Lee. He said that, come on, it's like, why am I even bothering doing what I'm doing? I'm getting less and less views. Maybe the income from the YouTube ads is, okay, let's say maybe not that great. But all the affiliate programs are going down, and it's producing a video is a lot of work. And to be honest, very often, even if you are popular enough that the companies are sending you something, people that are outside of this whole business think, oh, but you get a freebie. It's fantastic because you got something and you only had to make the video about that stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I have a pile of things that were sent to me, but I never really review it. Why? Because really, come on, something that's really like super irrelevant. Why should I invest a lot of time? And I'm not only talking about the moment of you filming this thing. It's a filming, editing, trying to figure out how to do it. Maybe there is some kind of the preparation and so on and so on and so on and so on. As the result, this takes a few hours. And I'm a software developer. I have luck in life that on the freelance market, my 1 hour pay is really like almost 3-digit number. So should I create a video about some crap for $20 and then maybe get $5 of the return from the YouTube ads, or maybe I should start doing something else. So, and by the way, this guy I spoke to is thinking about actually closing his channel, semi-retiring, because on the longer run, why? It's just not economically viable.
Speaking of content, again, as you already said, that's one good point. I mean, freebies. I also got some planes or hardware freebies I reviewed in the past. I mean, maybe at the end, 10% of that stuff you really use later on. So that's the backpack I got from Banggood. That's really awesome. It was a cheap backpack. I would even have bought it, and I still use it for 1.5 years now. It's totally fine. And I still have some planes in boxes around here that I will never fly. And even if you get a freebie, let's say you get every 2 weeks a new plane, a new flight controller, whatever thrown at you, you will never use it in a craft again. And if you build a craft completely, an airplane or whatever it is, then you will put it on the shelf somewhere and you will never touch it again. So
sell it.
Yeah, you can sell it, of course, and
for half of the value.
Yeah. Okay, you still make a plus at least, but still, I mean, as
you might not even make a. I don't agree. You might not even be able to make a plus, because if you got only a foam and you put your components, you will not get it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, and another point is you speak of making the videos and spending hours. I mean, let's say I make a review of a plane like the Talon 250G. That was my last review. You drive out to a spot, or you first build it, then you drive out to a spot, then you record it, then you drive back. So you have driving costs, you have spent 3, 4, 5 hours of flying and testing and doing stuff. You come back, you put the videos on your PC, and then you spend another 3, 4, 5, 6 hours of video editing. You put it up, and at the end, the whole video makes maybe 4, 5 euros on YouTube ad income.
That's a lot, by the way. That's a lot.
That's a lot. And then maybe a few bucks more for affiliate links, if people even click them. I mean,
no, if people buy after clicking, that's the catch.
If people buy after clicking, yeah, that's a big catch. I mean, this whole stuff, you spend 1 or 2 full days completely on this one review, and at the end, if you are lucky and you have a big channel, if I look for mine compared to yours, like 10 times the views per video, roundabout, you get out 40 or 50 bucks from one video.
Oh, I don't.
Not even.
Not even. No.
Yeah. So, but
good, in my case, a good video that's viewed for a whole year, and they are harder and harder to get every now and then, is getting like $20 yearly. Good video.
Okay.
If I, from YouTube ads, with the number of videos I have right now on my channel, which is like 700 something, from the YouTube ads, I'm getting like, it's a 3-digit number, but not from the high 3 digits. It's low 3 digits. And from the whole of my affiliate programs, it's one more time very low 3 digits. And the only positive aspect of that is the Patreon. When on Patreon, I'm getting higher 3 digits, and that's all. One might say that it's not too much. No, comparing to someone who's starting. No, but you are making almost a 4-digit number every month. That's amazing. But can you live out of that? Who could live for, let's say, 2,000 euros monthly? Hands up.
Before
survive and
before taxes.
Family.
Before taxes.
Before taxes.
Yeah, that's
that's
the point. I mean, all what you get is maybe or likely less than I get paid out from my daytime job, and it's not too much.
I also work in Germany. I also work for the German company. If I compare my income for working 8 hours a day and really like do not have to worry too much about creating a new interesting content that people will start to watch, and I will be fantastic and actually do this for a few hours a day later, then just no, it just does not add up. So it's not a great business to be a content creator on the niche, very small niche, because I repeat it all the time. We are extremely small niche topic, not even a hobby, a topic. I would have to say that 200,000 people worldwide are interested in this crap. That's all. That's almost nothing.
That's about right.
Done.
Well, okay, so that goes back to a question I have for you. It's a point that you made, which was you said, is it bad that that this hobby is in the zombie state? And you throw that out as a rhetorical question, but can you answer that?
From the hobby point of view, it's bad, because as the result, at least from my observation, less and less people are flying, and because of that, less and less people are joining. And because less and less people are joining, less and less people are flying. Like the group I was flying with on my favorite flying spot. 2 years ago, there were 8 cars, and we had to take turns to be able to fly on analog, and we are dividing ourselves into groups. Right now, I'm alone. Nobody else is really interested. Some people will say, "Oh, because it's the COVID." No, one guy from that group left the hobby because after the lockdown he decided, okay, I'm going back to cycling. It's better for my health. So he went back to cycling, and now he's cycling. Second guy got dropped and lost absolutely any interest in the hobby. So that's done. Third guy has a family. Fourth bought a house. Fifth kind of disappeared. Sixth, I don't even remember, and so on. Yes, sure. In that time, a few new people appeared, but still, in total, less and less and less people flying this thing. So from the hobby point of view, it's bad. From the point of view of the people who live from the hobby, and I mean the companies that make the products and build the software and so on, it's also bad, because they are not able to sell their products. And from the people that are already in the hobby and have everything and are there, it's fine. Nothing really changes. So that's my answer to this question.
Okay, well, that's a good question. Yes. What I wanted to just say is that what I've noticed is when we add people to the group, pretty consistently what I see are people who are pretty well educated, very bright, and this hobby requires a different set of skills that I think that about 96% of the people out there don't have, which is the tenacity to build something and also experience failure, and then tenacity to rebuild it and learn from your mistakes. A lot of people just want to buy something in a box, take it out, if it crashes, throw it away, buy another one if they like it, and fly again. And
Steve, there are not too many people who want to do that, because that just proved Parrot, and that was the reason why the Disco failed. If people just want to buy something out of box and fly it and fly an airplane, then the Disco would not have failed that hard.
You say that, but I think the main reason the Parrot Disco failed is it was just too boring. It wasn't flying a plane like we fly planes. It was just flying a drone that couldn't slow down around the sky. You know,
and it was expensive.
Yes, and it was really expensive. It's not really the same kind of experience.
But that's what many people, or what these people expect, that who Steve mentioned, who wants to buy something, unpack it, and just throw it in the air and fly it. And that's exactly what these people want. It's the same like with drones. That's the reason why people buy a Mavic, for example, or a DJI Mini.
The problem is they want that ease of use together with the actual fun flying that you have with, you know, the kind of things that we build. So and obviously that just can't really be attained.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a small, complicated hobby for nerds, period.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what's so wrong about that, though? I mean, it's just kind of we still have more nerds out there. There's a whole another layer of nerds we haven't gotten to yet. But when you have people who are, who are really just consumers, who just kind of don't really want to learn anything, just want to go out and fly, that's not really our niche, and I don't think it'll ever be our niche.
To be honest, half of those are the ones that have caused problems for hobby anyway. They just buy a really cheap $40 drone, go out and fly it where they're not supposed to because they don't know any better. So yeah, we don't. If you're going to fly something, learn about it properly and build something decent.
Just before, the fact that there's a barrier to entry for the hobby really does work out quite well sometimes. It means that people have to have some sort of intelligence before they can go and hurt someone.
Yeah, and they still do actually. I mean, just recently we had. I'm in a very big German FPV group too, and maybe once a week or every 2 weeks we got some posting of a video where people do totally crazy stuff, and I'm not talking about the cool way of crazy, like diving a huge mountain, but like power looping autobahn or freeway bridge, or chasing a train on the railroad, and that kind of crazy shit. And there are still people doing that.
I think that shows exactly that FPV drones have become too easy to fly. They are, you can just buy a ready-to-fly one now, and most of the time just put it in the air kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, speaking of FPV, just to take the moderation point from Steve right now. Speaking of FPV, I would say let's switch to the main topic. Let's switch back to INAV after a very depressing part of the Wingtalk now.
No, why depressing? It's not depressing. It's just the reality.
You know what I mean, Pawel.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Color in the background to maybe a blue, a little more vibrant blue. We're going to get that happier Pawel. He has LED lights in the background.
Probably,
I have.
Yeah, so he can change it to blue.
Which color? I have green.
Yeah, you have green right now.
Let me click in places. Okay, now we're talking.
Oh, now it gets aggressive. No, I have a very important question to Pawel that just came up for me. I mean, INAV 3.0 or 3.0.1 is released now. We won't go through all the new features again. We have done that multiple times. My question to you is, what would you see in the future? I mean, you're not the only one programming. There are many other developers with different skill sets, programming different parts. So from your perspective, what would be the next thing, or a few of the next things you would like to see in INAV develop for the next versions?
Or see and develop.
See.
So, on topic of seeing, I would like to see. Think number one: asynchronous I2C driver. That's something that I really would like to see. This is the most important change in the whole multi-Wii derivative, base flight derivative, flight controllers thing that I would like to see at one point. The fully asynchronous I2C driver. So there are no more problems with slow magnetometer, slow barometer, all that crap. That's really extremely huge thing. Will it happen? I don't know. I'm not that deep into STM32 to really pull that off. So that's the technical thing I really would like to see. Users will probably not see much of the difference. However, there will be really a huge difference if that can be at one point implemented. Thing number two is slightly more dynamic way to manage outputs on the flight controller. I'm not talking about the resource mapping from Betaflight, because I'm saying this on the multiple occasion. Resource mapping from Betaflight won't fly in INAV because of many factors, mainly because it happily ignores the fact that there are servos. And you can like assign stuff to stuff, and at the end it's just not working, and either your servo is burned or just not working. But I would like to make the outputs slightly more configurable. Like, for example, if we have by default motors assigned to output 1 and 2, so let's change so that it's not motors, but it's servos. Not one of the outputs, but both of the outputs. I think that we can be pulled off if I will one day have enough of the time. Doubt it will happen. I will maybe even work on that. And third thing.
Horizon Drift.
No, no, actually not. No, this is something that importance of which is actually much lower right now than it was some time ago, and even slightly lower than the media. And by media, I'm saying Facebook groups are think that that is. I don't know, something like that. What of that will happen? Hard to tell, but yeah.
I think that with the that point with the output mapping from motors and servos, that's actually a very good thing, because I think at the moment we are forced to set the mixer like in the order we want to connect the parts on the flight controller, so we cannot just change the order easily. And if that would be, if we could just say, hey, make this servo on this output and this servo on this output, and maybe
now you're going too far. Now you're going too far.
Okay.
Now you're going too far, because STM32 is for it to be relatively cheap, it has to be limited on the hardware side. And this is the situation. The output is actually quite limited on the hardware, and you cannot just assign anything to anything. There is limited number of timers, there are limited numbers of DMA controllers, and so on. And not every pin can be assigned to any timer or DMA channel, and so on. So it's not that. It's not that. But to make this slightly more flexible, if you want to have only servos, be my guest, have only servos.
Like for gliders with
compiling own target is not really possible.
Yeah. Like for gliders without motor, and but a lot of servos, like for air brakes and flaps and all that stuff.
No. You can run motor of the servo output. 100% doable.
Okay.
I'm even talking about stuff like that.
Okay, what I would like to see at this point, and I just talked about this with Henrik a while ago, is to have different PVM rates or PVM frequencies on the different timer groups. Because I just ran into that exact issue with the XUAV clouds. My main control servos are capable of 330 Hertz update rate, and I want to use them to get the maximum speed out of them for a nice fast tuning. But the servos that I plan to use for the pan and tilt, for example, they will only support 50 Hertz. So and I cannot mix them with each other.
We will not build that for you.
but that would be a nice thing in the future.
That's really super niche requirement. No.
Just don't cheap out on servos.
Yeah, then in this case, then I have to buy the expensive servos for the Pen and Tilt too. Yeah, that's the only way around that.
You're gonna break Henrik's heart when you do that. Sid, listen, I think this is a good time to take a quick little 3-minute break. But before we do, I want to hit Pawel with the next set of topics that I'd like to ask you about. Number one is about gyros, and number two is going to be about which planes seem to do better in auto tune with INAV 3.0. Do some planes do better? We'll open that up to the panel because I'm sure Mark will have an opinion, and Darren might as well. So let's follow up with that when we get back.
Before we exit, just one question I want to answer from the chat from Daytona FPV. Why does the servo reverse when you move from stabilized yaw to RC yaw? The servo doesn't reverse. Your channel is going in the wrong direction and your board is flipped around. So you have fixed that both and you are fine. Okay, now
there is an issue in the GitHub, and quite a few people have seen that. Everything else, stabilization is working fine, but when it goes from stabilized yaw changes to RC yaw, it reverses the channel. And it's on a V-tail and I believe on a standard tail as well. But there is an issue up in the GitHub about it. I've not tested it myself, but apparently quite a few people have had it.
Okay, that's new to
Quite
me.
a few.
Okay, guys, then let's go into the break for a moment.
Okay, break time. See everyone when you get back. Hey, we're back. We've got refreshments going on right now. Mark, are you drinking that cola beer again?
Okay.
Who's our sponsor today?
Not a beer.
Mixery. Yeah, it's beer and cola.
It's not even Radler.
That sounds vaguely intriguing, actually. Okay, so back to it. I wanted to ask you about gyros in particular, because last time you were on, you mentioned that the cheap gyros that come in these flight controllers are not very good, and good ones are about $10,000.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
and I still stand by that. Yes.
the question I have for you is, do you see, especially with something like CAN bus, which is, I guess, the next thing coming out here, would there be a possibility that you can have an external gyros you can put onto a flight controller?
Yes, INAV already can do it.
Oh, it can.
No, it goes like that. One more time. The gyros we are using are not for the automotive levels, and not even get me started about the aerospace levels. They are small, they are cheap, designed to be used in the smartphones, and nothing will really change that. But if the cost of the total board is, let's say, $50 for the expensive flight controller, there is not really too much market to put something that is thermically stable, does not have strange accelerometer resonances, and is even, let's say, is guaranteed that more or less all the axes has more or less the same gains, and as the result work fine. Because really, if you go into what is happening inside of the gyro when it's measuring stuff, then even the things like resonance happening somewhere inside of the internal structure, if it's, for example, in the few hundred hertz range, will just make the gyro absolutely useless. This is why MPU 6000 is a good gyro, but MPU 6500 not that good of the gyro, and we are basically not using any of the Bosch gyros because they are just crap. Now, does it make sense then to connect external gyro to a flight controller? Yes, but we will not be connecting those external expensive gyros, because if you have to pay, let's say, $1,000, 1,000 euros for the additional board that is that big, you will not put it on the few $100s worth of the drone or the airplane, because just don't. It will not happen. However, there are better and worse gyros. Like, for example, in the next release of the INAV 3.1, there will be a support for the, I forgot the name of this thing. There will be support for ICM 42605 and ICM 42688P gyros and accelerometer, which are much nicer hardware than everything we are using right now. However, still, nicer does not mean it's really up to the automotive and the aerospace industry standards. Far from that. But you ask about the external gyros and doesn't make sense. Like I said, yes, it makes sense in some cases, but let's not even mix the CAN bus into this thing, because it doesn't make sense. Let me get a physical example.
Okay. This is the good stuff we're talking about right now.
Yes.
Paul, this is Wingtalk.
Yes. I have also one on my mini drag, but it's just nicer to.
It's a bit too big for the camera.
This board over here. Yes. The careful viewers can see that I have this board on some of my quads for like 2 years. This is the Bosch BNO 055. It's the gyro/ACC/magnetometer for the toy grade one more time. Gyro is useless. You cannot really use only the gyro data because it's useless, and what we have inside of our flight controllers is much better. Accelerometer, comparing to what we have is just, doesn't make sense. Magnetometer, one more time, not that great. However, it has built-in sensor fusion. And it's much less prone for as a whole, after doing the sensor fusion for the gyro accelerometer and the magnetometer, it's much less prone to the drift of the artificial horizon. I did some experiments with that stuff already 2 years ago. Let me show you. Will I be able to find some interesting footage? Yeah, so I will start presenting again so everybody can see what I want to show you. And let me... Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, beautiful shot of the coast.
Yeah. So it's the DVR from 2 years ago. Can you spot something interesting?
The horizon is very good.
Yes, exactly. The horizon is very good. That's exactly what's happening in this video. No matter how hard I try to make the artificial horizon to drift, it doesn't want to do that on the multi-rotor. Really keeps the attitude pretty nicely. However, if, for example, do I have another example? If I will try to do exactly the same thing on the airplane, please watch carefully, or maybe let me... It's maybe not as good because it drifted a few degrees. It already drifted a few degrees. So because of how centrifugal forces are applied on the airplane, it's kind of not that good quality. Still, nice, good. The problem is that it's external hardware. You have to pay for it. You have to know how to connect this thing. You have to find an I2C which is absolutely too slow to do anything. You have to find the serial port you can connect this thing. And with the, I will just stop presenting right now. And with the INAV 3.0, the driver for the BNO 055 is part of the INAV. Even if you go into the CLI, you can type get IMU2, inertial measurement unit 2 secondary IMU, and enable this thing. And there is even a separate command called the IMU2 that is used to get the statistical data, get the calibration data from the BNO 055. However, INAV is not yet doing too much with this. You can override the OSD artificial horizon, but not internal artificial horizon. You can override the OSD heading, but not the actual heading. And you can use the data from the BNO 055 for the angle mode. And this is still highly experimental stuff. If you find yourself a BNO 055 and find yourself a flight controller that has a spare UART, and you connect that thing and put it on your thing and go flying, then you might start experimenting. Will this help in your case on some way? The initial reports are, let's say, slightly optimistic because if you fit the BNO 055 for the angle mode, it will not be drifting. However, there is a danger. What if something wrongs with the BNO 055, which is separate wires? What if the gyro dies, if this not dies, the communication with this thing dies? How to go back to the previous version. So there are really this is something I'm developing in my spare time. And because I do not have too much of the spare time, it's going slightly slow. But if anybody will feel the need to connect something more expensive to INAV, the framework is almost prepared. It's only about writing a driver for the external inertial measurement unit and feeding the data internally. I'm not. This stuff is so secret that it's not even part of the official documentation.
Oh.
Darren, you're muted.
Sorry about that. But yeah, you mentioned that there's fusion going on inside the BNO 55. Is there any chance that the fusion could actually take place within INAV, within the code?
Yes.
So that no matter what,
if you can write it. Can you?
I can't.
I can't
I write the
either.
easy stuff.
I don't get that. I don't get quaternions. I don't get this math. And believe it or not, but over the years, at least a couple of members of the INAV dev team tried to port the ArduPilot sensor fusion to INAV. Nah, it's still not working. We did it finally, it's working. No, it isn't. So that's the reality. If somebody who understands the math and the physics behind that will decide that, okay, I will do it, then it will happen. If not, then doubt it.
One of the questions I did have for you was, as far as gyro were concerned, was keeping all this in mind. Is there a possibility at some point in the future where you could have a gyro at both the front and the back of the fuselage and on each wing, and then you would have to probably specify
it? Doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense? Why not?
Doesn't make sense because the angular velocity will be exactly the same on every place of the body you are rotating. And putting accelerometer not in the center of the gravity of the body only adds more problems than helps in anything.
Yeah, because the horizon drift is actually not caused by any drift of the gyroscope, like the progression.
No, you're simplifying, Mark. You're simplifying. The drift of the gyro helps with that because our gyros and accelerometers are not in the stable environment. That means with the changing temperature, the data that they output can differ. On top of that, in case of the gyro, we are not calibrating for the gain. We are only calibrating for the zero because we have no way to calibrate for the gain because we cannot, right? Have a constant rotation.
Why can we not do a calibration for the game by doing like a standard rolling maneuver?
Yes, but
Something
you
like
have
that.
to know the angular velocity. This is the gain calibration.
Yeah,
And
so could we not
You
do
would
a
have to
standard
have
roll?
another gyro to calibrate this gyro. You do not have a different sensor anywhere to calibrate for the gain. That's
But you
the tricky part.
Could you not use the accelerometer for the calibration where you go from, level
With
to
the
inverted
accuracy
in a
of
certain
the
time?
accelerometers we use, no.
I see.
So it's probably more accurate. Just ignore the gains completely and just let's assume that the gyro returns somewhere. It's not temperature. It's not stable for the temperature. We are not calibrating for the gain, and those sensors cost like a few bucks a piece. So let's not really expect too much. And finally, the drift of the accelerometer happens when the data from the gyro and accelerometer diverge of something. Because, for example, there is too much of the vibration and the accelerometer goes into the resonance. Accelerometer returns you complete crap. You cannot do anything. You cannot filter this out. And the data from the accelerometer does not really match data from the gyroscope. Or if you are doing a coordinated turn when your gravity vector not only depends on the gravity, but also depends on the centrifugal force generated by the body itself. Data does not match. As the result, the horizon drift because we don't know the value of the centrifugal force. To know the value of the centrifugal force to be able to compensate for that, you have to know the speed, and you more or less have to very linear speed, and you also have to know the speed of the turn. So to get the math used to compensate for that would require both magnetometer to have the absolute frame of the reference and also the GPS to be able to compute the centrifugal force and remove it from the gravity vector recorded by the accelerometer. So this is not a simple math.
Going on math, there's a question in the group. First, Keith, Bonafide Pirate, has asked, is that how ArduPilot does it with a software sensor fusion? but also Papa Noob has asked, is it just quaternion math?
Quaternions. It's
Because
above
if it is, he
quaternions.
understands it.
It's not about quaternions. INAV already uses quaternions, and quaternions are used to get rid of the problem of the gimbal lock. The gimbal lock is the situation. Let's say this is roll. We are locking roll, and if the pitch is 0, the roll is computed nicely. But if you go 90 degrees down, the roll is no longer roll. Roll becomes yaw.
Yeah.
This is called the gimbal lock. And quaternions, which add the 4th dimension to the whole math to get rid of the gimbal lock. Yes, INAV already does that. This is not a problem. The problem is being able to get the vector of the centrifugal force and remove it from the gravity vector recorded by the accelerometer. This is the interesting part. To run a sensor fusion, because you are fusioning 4 actually different sensors. And INAV already does the sensor fusion because data from the accelerometer and gyroscope are already fusioned together, merged together to get the correct attitude, but not the 3rd sensor or the 4th sensor required to get the centrifugal force vector.
And it's also not just how many sensors that you have fusion together, it's how cleverly you fusion them together. So
it's about which data can you record and what you can do with the data, how advanced your math is when you are working with this data. And Darren, you're monitoring the chat. I would like to answer the question about the artificial intelligence. There was a question about will there be an artificial intelligence in INAV? There was like half an hour ago. So can I?
Yeah, you go for it. Go for it.
No.
Next question.
No, but let me extend on this a little.
Not even with H7.
Artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence used for what? For the stabilization? No. Why? Because nobody ever said that the stabilization done by the artificial intelligence will be better than the PID controller. And it's, of course, it's possible to have the stabilization and altitude computation done by the artificial intelligence. But to have it running, you have to be able to build the model of the data you will use to teach your neural network or whatever to produce good data. And then you will have to implement your model into your flight controller, which is not something that will fit in the F722 out of the box. No, there's no flash on that, so to do it. And on top of that, nobody says that the results will be better than the PID controller has. And trust me, PID controller just works, and tuning the PID controller is 2 orders of magnitude simpler than tuning the artificial intelligence. If users do not understand how the PID controller works, they will never understand how the artificial intelligence works, and it's not a silver bullet.
I think it's a bit unfair to say that it can never work, though, because, for example, you say about the training data, that could be obtained from, using an INAV flight controller on an aircraft that already has an RG-pilot flight controller that can get the artificial horizon well, and then that could be used as your training data. Maybe
be a model of that airplane.
It would only be a model of how well RG-pilot could do, but that would still be better than what INAV has at the moment.
Get the data.
Yes.
Who says that this model can be reused on a different model?
Yeah.
So let's get into a topic that's going to be a little bit less controversial, which is a little less heated, which is what planes are we having success across the board with all planes with auto tune? Or some people are writing in saying the rates are too high? So that's like probably one of the biggest topics we have in the group. And Leslie in particular, Leslie Yagan writes to me all the time. He's like, "It's when I'm flying, my rates don't seem right." So I hear from him all the time, and also I see it in the chat from time to time. Are we having some issues? It was brought up in particular with the AR Pro that the rates might be wrong with that one.
The rates, but do we actually know what are the maximum rates that can be achieved on the hardware? Because
It's in theory, yes, we know already. If you set up the plane fully manual with the maximum throws without speed stalling, without just slowing it down, you can achieve around 110 to 120 degrees per second on pitch and 500 to 550 on roll.
so you don't need auto-tune.
So in
You just enter the data and it's there.
but
That's simple.
But yeah, in theory, yes. But of course, that only if you maximize the throws to a point just before it gets unstable. I mean, I think there was a little bit of miscommunication when Alex and I worked on the new auto-tune algorithm. He did many approaches. I tested a few of them, and we tried what works best. And we tried it on a few planes. We started with the small ones that don't smash into pieces when they crash, and then worked our way to the bigger ones. I think there was one thing missing, or maybe I'm not sure if it's in the release notes. But if you want to use the new auto tune and get the same values of your previous tune, where you tune your rates to the absolute limit of the plane, that's not how it's supposed to be. Autotune to determine the rates will just use around 90%, or around, it will just use 90% of the throw
80.
of the. It was changed to 90 for the final version because 80 was too low. 90% of the throws, but this is feed forward plus P gain combined for 90%. So actually, for the feed forward only, it ends up at around 80% deflection roundabout. So if you want to use, or if you really want to reach the maximum rates the plane can achieve, you have to go with mechanically a little bit further with the control surface deflection than the manufacturer recommends. Like if the manufacturer says 12 millimeters up and 10 millimeters down, you set it to 14 up and 12 down, for example.
Yeah.
So
Or just let it tune and then increase the feed forward by 20%.
That's also possible. But no, then the feed forward will not match the rates anymore. You just increase the rates afterwards.
And rates as well, yes.
Yeah, but if you increase the rates, the deflection will increase. So the feed forward will stay the same.
Okay, let's not go into the math. it's too late.
Yeah, but actually, yes, tune the plane, just raise the rates a little bit, and then compare manual mode and acro mode just to make sure you don't oversaturate the servos, and you're done.
Okay, so you're finding across the board then everything's working out fine as far as large planes, small planes, the auto tune, the rates are coming out fine.
Yeah, I mean, Alex and I are still working on that for the next release. We want to do some optimization, but basically it should work already.
I think it's to some extent it's the human float problem, because if you already know what is your tune and what are your rates, then why are you letting some kind of the algorithm to find those rates? If you know them, just put them there and do not worry about anything like that. And on top of that, I think maybe that pilots are expecting that the auto-tune will get them what they are using in the manual mode, or some kind of the absolute values of perfect flight. But this is not how it's working. Every algorithm has its limitation, and the number of the limitations on the auto-tune algorithm is actually quite a long list, because it's only allowed to go as high with rates, as low with rates, and so on. So it's a mechanism that allows you to get something that's usually quite flyable. for the total beginner that does not have any idea what are the rates on his airplane. And if I type, for example, 300 on the pitch, the airplane will absolutely never do it. None of the airplanes I know will do 300. And this will only cause a lot of the problems of the item winds up and so on and so on and so on. So auto-tune solves the basic problems. But after solving the basic problems, it's up to you to put it into the condition of you expect it as this airplane as the power user. Because let's not mix beginners and power users in the same bucket.
One of the things that somebody originally, about a year ago, Mark and I were talking, I think Mark, it was all of us were talking, the idea of having this list of the top 21 planes of 2021 was so that we can come up with a list of, here are the planes that people are flying. Let's put out a list of what people are using. It was going to be a question of what PIDs are you using, which rates are you using for this plane? And because people would write in and like, I'm about to launch this plane, I'm scared to death, and I want to know what the people are using. And so they got accused of wanting us to set up the plane for them. But now that we have something that's kind of doesn't really fail, we've got a backstop for setting up a plane. Maybe it's time to re-explore this topic once again, as far as, you know, we can list the different planes, what people have in the planes as far as the setups are concerned, and, you know, have a...
I am against. To be honest, quite frankly, I am against such a list. Because in general, the copying without taking into consideration all of the factors, the tune of one airplane to a different airplane is, I'm sorry, somebody's at the door downstairs. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
No problem. Yeah, let's just quickly come back to auto-tune, because we talked about that before. One important factor, and I think that's mostly the point where most people fail with auto-tune, the type of plane you have. Especially flying rings are so pitch sensitive, and CG sensitive especially. Yeah. I mean, just take the AR Ring Classic. You have CG marks, these round spots at the bottom. It's already hard to balance a flying ring on the CG marks, or in general bottom rings, because the center of mass is below the marks, and it will always tip forward or backward. And if you have a flying ring that's already CG sensitive, and it's just slightly tail heavy, you will basically speed stall all the time. Maybe you don't even notice directly if you're right at the edge, and INAV will recognize very high rates, and the next time you fly like a bigger battery and the CG just shifts forward 5 millimeters or 10 millimeters on a ring, the rates don't match anymore, and then you start to get the bobbing in navigation modes, for example. So the CG is also a very important point, to have it right for the plane you have. And especially
CG is the most important single thing you have to set on your airplane.
Yeah, especially on flying rings.
Then doesn't really matter. Yep. If your CG is wrong, then everything else will be absolutely wrong. And like Mark said, even very small difference in the CG location can cause the airplane to fly completely different way. And let me go back to the copying of the PIDs between model. It would work only if two models would be 100% identical.
Right.
And we know from experience that this is not the reality. Many people ignore the CG, those kind of servos, different kind of servos, different weights, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So at the end, putting someone's rates and the PID tune on somebody different, which in theory has exactly the same foam, can result in absolutely anything. This is why I'm in general against doing that. At least against doing that without paying attention to what we are copying and to what copying. And then if you really would like to build a database of the tunes for airplanes, there is this feature in the configurator called the presets. Why not just add data over there instead of sharing something on the list somewhere?
Yeah, and that was exactly the thing you taught before, that it won't work just if some hardware points are different. And I mean, that was the reason why we just removed all the presets from the configurator for planes.
I'm personally still not sure if I should keep because yes, I'm the maintainer of the configurator. I'm the holy truth in terms of the configurator. That's my question. If I should keep the presets in the configurator or not.
I mean, what I mean is we removed all the plane presets that were there before.
I want to remove the functionality completely.
Ah, okay.
Get rid of the presets. Like, done.
So just use the initial configuration to apply the basic values and then tune from start everything from there. Yes. And that, I mean, that's basically what we already have done. But for quads, I think it's still helpful to have presets, base presets for different sizes already. I'm not sure. I have not flown INAV quad yet, so.
To some extent, yes. To some extent, not. Let's talk about the quads for a second. Yeah, I know. The problem with quads that the quads, as long as you keep the propeller size between 3 and 7 inches, is quite the uniform class. That means that more or less you can expect the moment of inertia toward the torque from the motor's ratio. The mass is more or less, okay, there are some deviation, but this is quite uniform. Usually 7 inches are quite similar to each other. When you go below 3 inches and especially above 7 inches and go into 8 or even 10-inch class, it's absolutely not uniform anymore. I can guarantee that if I would give you the tune for my 10-incher, which is somewhere there in this pile of junk over there, which flies amazingly and can power loop a tree no problem, to somebody else's 10-incher, it will fly a crap. Because it's not longer uniform. Every build is unique, and the bigger you get, the harder it gets to tune this thing. So in my opinion, just removing presets completely would probably do very little harm, because INAV defaults for quads are really good.
Yeah. So as far as your quads versus planes, last time we spoke, planes was what brought people to INAV. You said, the INAV quad, is that a smaller and smaller segment of the total INAV picture now?
It's 50 by 50. Let me check the data. I have the data. I can tell you everything.
Okay, we're going to find out how big fixed wing is.
It will take me a moment to get to the data. So I will not be sharing this time, because this time it doesn't really make sense.
It's top secret.
No, it's not really.
You can peek at it and you can tell us what you might see. I can neither confirm nor deny. That's what you have to start each sentence off with.
Data from the last 3 months. Airplane is 58%. Multi-rotors are 38%. And then we have like 1.2% of the rovers. This is the market share on the INAV in the last 3 months.
Not one helicopter. I remember in your stream there was one person with a helicopter.
Yeah, now I have something else, and now it's 0.01% of the tilt rotor, whatever that means.
Sounds good. Hey, Darren, do we have any questions in the group?
There was just a lot of conversation. Yeah, sorry. There's one from Keith actually about Mavlink 2 and whether that was working. I need to. Oh, here we go. So Mavlink 2 support. Mavlink over RC works, but I was unable to get telemetry into any ground station apps. Should that be working right now?
Yes,
Using
it's
with a
supposed
Crossfire
to be
RX.
working, and we have reports from one of the people in the INAV community that it's working for both versions of Mavlink. No problems. All the frames, all the data is coming correctly. Checksums are correct, and yes, tested multiple occasions that the data is fine.
So must be something else on the equipment then,
But
or maybe just a setting.
probably yes,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay. One question I had for you, Pawel, is when it comes to what we're looking at here towards the God, I forgot my question. I had something so important to ask you, Pawel. That was just kind of no, it had something to do with the just kind of with the future of INAV. I guess what I want to know is, okay, I remember what it was. We are at a point right here where, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like we are still in this process of trying to like really get INAV tuned right, fixed right. It's kind of right now we're still working out the whole tuning process. And how much longer do you think this is going to go on for before you finally say this is fully baked?
Never.
Never?
Yeah.
Never. That's as simple as that. Never. The situation like that might happen if the project will be dead. There will be nobody developing INAV. Then we can say, okay, we reached the final stage of the evolution.
Well, the reason I ask you that is because stepping forward, I mean, it seems like we're spending our time right now, our effort, just kind of getting INAV to the point where this is, I don't know, it's almost like when you buy software. Sometimes you buy, crappy software, and then they just put a new feature on top of it. So it was, somebody told me they worked at Adobe, and they said that they would go around and ask their teams, what do you got? We have to come out with a new version of Photoshop. And we've got this we're working on. Okay, we're going to put that in there. But at one point, Photoshop went back, or Adobe went back, and they just kind of redid Photoshop as far as making it a little bit more user-friendly, and just kind of the menus all made sense and worked and things like that. I kind of feel like that's where we're at right now. We're kind of making sure we're working on the menus. That's what Darren's working on. But at some point, is it going to be, you don't think it's going to be a point where it's going to be good enough where we can start moving forward, and then all of a sudden the flight controllers, the quality of the flight controllers are going to make sense because you're going to start to put heavier and heavier demands on them. You're going to start writing. I mean, when I heard you and Constantine talk, you're talking about using things down the road, you're looking at what INAV could possibly do, such as being able to just see, detect things in the path that you're flying. And I would imagine the code for that is just enormous. So anti-crashing, figuring out what the ground is, things like that, where all of a sudden, these are the kind of things like an F405 might not be able to handle as far as processing power? Deep thought.
We don't know when or if we will reach the state saying that it's perfect now. Mainly because we don't know yet what is the state. We don't know that there is nothing better. And currently the mindset is that we can always do better. We can always make this improvement, that improvement, to make everything better and better and better with every iteration. So if you are looking into the situation that we will say, okay, now it's like perfect, we are not changing anything for the stabilization ever because it's working great out of the box, no, because we have not even scratched the surface of the potential solutions to those problems. We are currently in the level of the complexity somewhere in the early 50s. And then we are going into this extra layer of the extra stuff that someone might implement or not. I personally would have to say that the current generation of the hardware we are using right now is not suited for what you are thinking about. Not because we need H7 or faster something or F405, no, because of the whole architecture. To have those parallel processes running all the time, doing stuff, analyzing dozens of sensors left and right. First of all, question, is it really a hobby, or are we going into professional? And if we are going into the professional, why nobody is paying me thousands of dollars per hour of doing stuff for the professionals? And on top of that, we would need stronger CPUs with multiple cores, sensors we don't have, and the ideas for the usages that we don't have. INAV is the hobby-grade software. It's a hobby, only for the hobby. And if we will start to demand things that are not for the hobby, or like that, let's say that, okay, but I would like to use this fantastic feature. Developing something for free as the open source for one person, if this person is not me, no, I'm not doing that. Pay me, I might think about this. That's just the reality over here.
Okay, so what you're saying then is that the processors we're working with now, the F405s, the F7s, these are going to be around for a while then.
F405s will be with us for long. F722s and F411s will be the first one that will start to suffer some of the problems. They are the first ones. Maybe not for the INAV 3.1, but most probably for INAV after 3.1, we will start to cut features on F722s.
Oh, you hear that? Breaking news.
No, it's not a breaking news. We already said about this thing for at least a few times. At least I said on a different occasions. Right now, the flash memory on the F722 is at 90. I should have an exact number. Is at 92.36%.
Yeah,
so there is very little space to add new features on the F722s.
I think for the F411, I'm not sure if I have looked at the right point. When I compile them, it says 98% or so.
Yes, it's even worse on the F411s.
Yeah.
That means that if those flight controllers will have to leave, and they will have to leave, we will have to start cutting features. And cutting features, probably one of the first features that we will cut off is the wind estimator. That doesn't work and nobody uses, but it's there. So why to have it somewhere? Just remove it. And some time ago, I even emergency. Let me quickly get through the list of the things I prepared somewhere during March. So virtual pitot tube will be gone. Protocol for the fast furious FFPV 2.4 GHz, SUMD, SUMH, XBus, Yeti XBus, hot telemetry, wind estimator, external servo drivers. Those are still the features that will be gone from F722s, because F722s, if you want to keep the flight performance on pair with other flight controllers, we'll just have to start cutting them. So my advice, do not buy F722s anymore. Stop buying F722s, just like that.
I was expecting something like in 2 years or so, but to have them cut in about a year.
No. They will be with us for quite a while.
Cutting features in a year or so.
Not this, but I made this list of things to cut on the F722s in December. I right now checked, because back then we already had problems with fitting everything of F722s. We kind of overdid this problem by making F722s slightly slower. We lowered the speed optimization of 722s from fast to normal. Users do not really see any difference because still the critical elements of the code are in the fast memory and are optimized for speed. However, everything else we optimized for size. That lowered actually increased the time required to run a full control loop by, I think, like 5 microseconds. But we are still fitting this everything in the correct speed of execution, so there is no flight degradation. But this allowed to save a few kilobytes of the flash memory on F722s. What next? Buy F745 or let's think about H7s. Right now, a lot of manufacturers are switching from F722s to F745s already. And not the big F745s, like, for example, Kakuti was doing some time ago.
F745 or F765?
4.5 and 6.5, both.
Ah, okay.
They have 1 megabit flash. Like, I have something. Let me get something from the warehouse.
Yeah, I mean, F722 might be a little bit hard for some people, I think, because there are tons of people or tons of planes out there with F722s right now. Especially Leslie just put in the chat that he bought an F722 WPX just now.
Yeah.
No. They will fly.
The next,
they will fly.
Yeah, sure.
However, some of the features might be removed from them, but probably the features that nobody uses, because raise your hand, whoever used the XBus RX protocol. Raise your hand. Nobody.
No, but I use the wind estimator on all my long-range planes.
I do too.
And it works pretty good for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know that there's some wind up there.
You're the minority over here. I have...
We're the smart minority.
I have this thing. This is still a pre-production sample.
Oh.
This is a board from Matek, as you can see in this WPX Factor, the small wings. It is the new upcoming. I don't know if I can actually share this with you. Yeah, okay, I can. I allow myself. It's the new Matek F765 WSE.
Ooh. Oh.
The difference is, comparing to the standard F765 that currently you cannot buy because the CPUs were just impossible to get, because there is just such a huge problem to get electronics nowadays, that Matek somehow managed to get a batch of F765s in a different... okay, I can remove this one. In a different packaging. Instead of this big, I don't remember the name of that packaging, QFP, blah, 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 blah. Right now, this has F765 in the BGA package. Let me quickly show this to you. Okay.
Isn't BGA 640 by 480?
No. Was it a dad joke?
Dad joke.
Okay.
That's back from CRT monitor days.
I still got mine.
The one I'm pointing at. This is the new F765. Teeny tiny smallish one. Ball grid array packaging with the proper analog OSD and plenty of ports. And one more time, this is the sandwich type of the flight controller with the new gyro, because you cannot buy MPU 6000 anymore. So this has this gyro I was talking previously. It's the ICM 42605. Pretty interesting stuff. So
I hope the feature set regards the available connections will be at least the same with the old 765.
There is no manual, so I just have to guesstimate from the number of pins. So I see that we have 10 PWM outputs. We have serial 1, serial 5, serial 8. So 8 serial ports.
I like that.
So sounds similar then.
Looks like 8 serial ports.
And usually they have 2 separate pads for PWM 11 and 12, at least the F765.
Yes, there's also S11, S12. Exactly, you're correct. There's a LED, pitot tube, CU2. I have no idea what CU2, VB2, and is it CAN?
Cam.
I don't know. Is it CAN bus or not a CAN bus? But there are like 3 connectors on the side for the wires, so maybe. So interesting things are coming.
Yeah,
New
I
flight
just
controller family from Batek.
A bit smaller.
I'm just happy to see that they use these self-locking JST connectors now. I think they have also an external USB board with buzzer, like for the F722, and that's one thing that really annoys me, that sometimes the JST connector from my F722 WPX just moves a tiny little bit and then the USB connection doesn't work anymore, or the buzzer is dead or whatever. I have often to push in the plug back and before it works. So I'm happy to see these self-locking connectors there.
From the safety point of view, I prefer all the pins to be soldered.
Yeah, because you rip them off if you're in a crash or so. I know that point.
That's my take on it, because the wires, okay, as long as you have the spare JST connectors. And then at one point you run out of the wires because you cut them too short, and now you cannot reuse them. And where should I get one? Like good old times with the SP Racing F3. That was a challenge to get those wires.
I have 2 planes here with an F-35 Lightning, so yeah, I know that feel. But the good thing for me, at least from my point of view, is I don't reuse flight controllers. I fly my planes to death. So Darren wants to say something?
Yeah, we just got a question in the chat. Will from Flying FPV, will INAV support MSP DisplayPort?
That's a good question. When somebody will feel that it's required and will spend some time on developing this thing. There was an attempt to implement this thing by one of the independent developers, because this guy wanted to have the shark bite in the canvas mode running with INAV. And he did it. However, unfortunately, he did it in the way that broke traditional analog OSD. So we kind of could not merge the code, but it's somewhere there on the GitHub. If you really want to, you can find it.
Okay, can I have an explanation what the display port exactly is?
Yes, it's having the INAV tells external OSD how to paint something on the OSD.
Okay.
It's like that. So you configure your external OSD inside of the INAV. It's one of the approaches of the external OSD, different than the DJI from DJI Digital. It's a different.
Is that all the canvas stuff, or is that DJI as well?
No. The DJI works with the MSP. It just gets the data from the flight controller and then goggles overlay the OSD. So this is how it's working. The canvas mode is just for INAV. It's just a canvas on which it draws the elements.
Cool. And what about the FrSky Pixar OSD? Because that's connected to the UART.
This is similar to the canvas mode, but different. The implementation is different. Okay. So it's there. And the problem is that the only practical usage for the canvas mode right now is shark bite. Period.
Okay, so because this is really interesting, especially a friend of mine, he already uses Sharkbite, and I will meet him on an FPV event end of next month. And also my plan is to get Sharkbite during end of summer.
Don't get it.
Why?
No, just like that. Don't buy
Sharkbite. I will anyway.
No, don't. Spare yourself the problem of the Sharkbite.
I won't get DJI, and
No. Stay with analog.
I mean, I will mainly stay with analog, but I want to have
Shark Bite.
Okay, then can you at least give some more background information? Why not?
I got to be able to test this canvas mode. I got samples from Shark Bite. I have a Shark Bite. It's here for 2 months in this box. Reason number 1: you have to mount this thing on your traditional goggles.
No problem.
They have a relatively small faceplate, so they become even more front heavy. Problem number 1. Problem number 2 is that it's not like snap and there. No, you have to connect the cables. You have to connect the cable, and you have cable like going from here to here, and second cable that powers this thing goes to here. As the result, your pretty nice and small full DJI goggles, analog goggles, are becoming like that much. Then
let me show you something.
Then you have the TXs, and TXs are fine. I have nothing really against the TXs. But finally you go into the problem that it's better than the analog, but not good enough. And although I understand some people like reservation, but I will not buy the DJI. Okay, you will not buy the DJI, but if you will not buy the DJI, then what you can buy and is digital is 2 classes worse than the DJI. That's the problem. It's both systems are not on the same level. Oh God, Mark, don't show me your setup. I already see this thing at the back.
Yeah, I just want to show you what I have right now. So I have the emergency power play with the cable to the goggles. I have my module in the front, and usually I either have a battery in the back. By the way, that's a good counterweight for the goggles with the top strap. Or I have a battery here and another cable on the other side routed around, or I use USB power on my power bank that is in my pocket. So I don't care about extra cables. I'm used to it.
One of the reasons I'm not really giving the Shark Bite a bigger test is because of the number of the wires I have to have on my face. I just hate it. I hate it. I don't want to do everything myself. Do it yourself for the goggles is not something that I'm interested. This is one of the reasons I'm not into having this analog adapters for the DJI goggles because it looks like shit. I hate it because you have wires going everywhere. And so it's either really analog when you have nice really like package that goes on your head, or unfortunately, the digital DJI. And I don't care that it's a DJI. It's the best quality I can get.
I also don't care that it's DJI as a manufacturer. I mean, I have a Mavic Pro, for example, and I would buy another Mavic again if I want to spend the money on a better camera drone. My point is, I don't have a proper OSD. And without a proper OSD, I won't fly long range. And I have the range limitation. And with a 12 or 13 kilometer range limitation, I can basically scrap all my long range planes because every plane I have can beat that.
Yeah, in this case, you are the power user.
Yeah.
You are power, like top half of the % of the users. Because for you, 13 kilometers is not enough.
It's a trip around the block.
But there's also sort of OpenHD, and apparently Orca's got something
don't
coming
even
out.
Get me started on the OpenHD.
Oh,
really don't.
So, I mean,
OpenHD.
Let me get into OpenHD just for a moment. The main reason why I don't use it right now, because you need a webcam, you need a Raspberry Pi, you need a Wi-Fi module, you need a full ground station with a receiving module. So you have so much hardware you have to put in your plane and on the ground just to keep it running. And you have a latency that's basically unusable for any proximity flying. So that's the reason why I don't use it right now. But what's interesting it's a little bit strange how they start that, but they want to develop all-in-one board that you can stack on your flight controller.
I saw some picture of that.
Yeah, with dedicated conversion or encoding hardware on it that should, in theory, bring down the latency to around 50 milliseconds or so. If this works, and if this works properly with good VTX power, then OpenHD definitely gets will become interesting. Yeah. But the current state is absolutely...
The main problem is where they're gonna get the dedicated hardware that will do the low latency HD compression.
That's a good question.
There are companies that can deliver something like that. I know that one of the companies we know well wanted to develop something like that, and they contacted the company that can sell them the chip that does the compression. And they talked with two companies. The company number one never got back because, okay, come on. The company number two, okay, how many chips you want? Yeah, maybe 20,000. And they never got back to them again.
I mean, we are talking about chips like created by Sony or Samsung and all that stuff that's used in cameras and TVs and all that stuff that brings millions.
Those are useless. You cannot use those.
Not even these real-time image processing chips like in more modern TVs?
Define the real time. In the case of the TV, 100 milliseconds delay, who gives? Who gives? We would like to have something like 30, not 100. That's the problem. The chip inside of the SharkBite is already capable of doing HD compression, but it's HD compression with so much latency, it would be unusable as the FPV system. So what SharkBite is doing? They are using chip that can do HD compression, but they run it without the compression and are lowering the quality of the signal to fit in the bandwidth they have. This is why SharkBite behaves like the analog in terms of the noise and the range and the losing of the lines, because it's analog over digital.
Okay.
Because they got rid of the compression.
That's interesting. Okay. I mean, /7FPV just asked in the chat, Orca or TBS, no chance to get the DJI chips. I don't think that DJI will sell them.
No, DJI will not.
I think the problem is not.
I think it's interesting that only one company got ever the license to produce DJI FPV compatible hardware.
I think the problem is not even the hardware. I think DJI has no problem to sell the hardware, but the software is highly proprietary.
No, I'm not even talking about the fact that even for Cadix, but in the beginning, the DJI was making the chip, and they are still making the chip, although the Cadix now sells everything. Only one company got the license. Other companies wanted to get the license, but the price tag set by the DJI meant that they are not interested in offering the license to everyone. Just the price level was so like, wow, come on, I would have to sell my hardware for more cash than DJI sells them if I would like to buy the license from the DJI to use this solution. This is the situation. DJI is not interested in giving this technology to anyone because the DJI is using the same technology for both the FPV, digital FPV, and all of their drones. All.
Yeah, I think that was also what I thought when DJI said that they stopped producing the air unit and the camera and they won't sell it anymore and everything is pushed over to Cadix. I think, and that was the point where I also thought, okay, all the DJI FPV electronics, the air unit, the cameras, the goggles in the first place, in the FPV area were just a beta test for the transmission system, and so they can use these information and these data to sell their FPV drone and also transfer that to their camera drones.
No, we are not beta testers. They just probably at one point decided, okay, you know what, we have this technology we use on our drones. Let's check what this RC FPV market can give us. Let's give it a try. All we have to do is design the goggles, but we have the electronics that will go inside. It's really easy peasy. Nothing will happen. We do not have to do the whole research for the hardware. We have everything. So made a test. And the test was, okay, people are flying this. Now let's make our FPV drone. And then we don't know what's going to happen later.
Yeah, I mean, we know the DJI FPV drone made a big hype, and now no one talks about it anymore.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it was really strange. It was like the beginning of the year. Everyone was talking about it. YouTube was flooded with videos. Everyone flew this drone. I even have a friend here in the city who bought one. He flew it 3 or 4 times, maybe. And no one is talking about it anymore. You see now and then you see now and then you see a video coming up, but that's it.
Well, half the people seem to buy them to unlock the goggles and then sell them on again or return them.
Yeah, I mean that was also funny because people bought the V2 goggles standalone, but they couldn't pair it with their DJI FPV equipment on their quads, because the goggles had to be activated with a DJI FPV drone. So they ordered the drones, activated their goggles, and then sent back the drones. There was basically an activation market with drones going all over the place just to activate these goggles.
Oh, God.
Josh Gold didn't do that at all.
But I think it was mainly a bug in the firmware, but you couldn't update before you activated. That was the problem. They couldn't fix it other ways.
Oh, interesting. So are you? I'm hearing something interesting from you, Pawel. Are you saying that you like the DJI goggles, but you also are a fan of analog as well? I mean,
no, I basically stopped flying analog. Okay. I have only analog on the things I still like to fly, but I cannot put digital on them. Period. On everything else, no, screw analog. I don't care. Because I love the quality on the goggles, on the DJI FPV. Period. It's uncomparable to anything else we have.
There's one.
In the beginning, no, man, no, I will be using both. But then I actually put those things on my face, started flying, and decided that, hey, I have too many things I'm not using, so I'm not putting digital on that. So I was able to get down to 5 things in my fleet that are DJI equipped. I keep 2 airplanes or analog because they are just for the analog and they will stay this way. And I have 1 5-inch on the analog, only to be able to fly with analog for different stuff. But
record OSC, for example.
Drone, it's digital.
And for me, it's basically the other way around. I have tried DJI FPV 2 times now, and I think the only reason for me to buy an DJI goggle is because I can put it over my glasses. So I don't have to wear contact lenses. That's the only reason I would use that goggles, but mostly with analog because of the previous reasons. But yeah, Steve, I think we are at 2 hours and 8 minutes now. We should come to an end at this point.
All right. Well, hey, that was a fantastic Wingtalk. Thanks so much to Pawel for joining us today. I really appreciate all you've done for INAV and taking your time out of your Sunday evening to come and tell us no. And
no. If you ever want to
the episode...
hear me saying no, just call me. I will tell you no.
So yeah, that'll be the future of just kind of like if you, I'll be hey pal, I got an idea. No. We should call the episode Powell Says No.
No.
Hey, it's a
But it's
new.
great having you. It's just this is interesting to see what's going on in the hobby, where it's going, and thanks for at least tipping your hand a little bit as to showing us what's coming up in the future. It was really fantastic. And
We don't know what's coming in the future. That's the challenge.
We need that as a sticker. Pawel Says No.
that's
I have a sticker Pawel approves, but maybe I should make one that Pawel Says No. Okay?
That would be great. Pawel Approves. I have a few of them. Still.
Can you somehow upload a picture to
Skype? Yes.
No.
Sure. Just drag it in the chat, and I can show it to the.
You have to open the chat. So wait.
Probably not a fan of Microsoft. There we go.
Now I have to say when Pawel Says No.
Pawel Approves.
Charles wants a T-shirt with it on.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yeah.
All right. It said Powell approved.
The end of the end of the ring talk is Pawel Approved now.
Well, as always, it's great to have everybody here. This has just been a great chat. Thanks for sticking with us on this hot evening, and looking forward to seeing what Luke looks like next month.
It's getting pleasurably cold over here.
It's completely hot over there.
5 degrees today, Celsius.
Oh, really?
Can we switch, please?
Yeah.
No.
I'm right here.
Okay, guys. Thanks for the
Thank you
talk,
very
much,
and
everybody.
see you next time.
Guys.
Bye
See you later.
See ya.
bye. Okay, stream is ending.